Guys, I like this movie, but I do have a big issue with it that I'll get to. First, let me talk about the things I like. First thing, of course, love the respect they put on the '60s in London swing. I don't know the term. Swinging '60s, I believe the term is like 1960s London UK culture. Um, there is a character in this movie played by Matt Smith, and when he was talking, he reminded me personally of like old school Michael Caine gangster, the gangster film Get Car, and I love that. Also reviewed on this channel. Get Car, watch it, good movie. That made me feel so good, even though I barely know anything. I don't know anything actually about the 1960s. I'm excited to learn because of this film, and from like just as a someone who's a fan of learning history, I'm a fan of it. That particularly excites me going down that rabbit hole, and I like when films do that for me. It actually reminds me. There's another movie you'll see the review of it. Western, Harder Day Fall, which is like a black western. I get the same vibe in that sense from this film Last Night in Soho. Secondly, I like that from the start. There's almost like a off edge vibe to this film. Like something doesn't feel right from the start of this film, and I don't. It tricks me a lot. I like how this movie tricks me a lot. At the start of the film, how do I put this? I thought we were in a different place in a different period than in different periods. How do I say this without spoiling it? I thought we were in a completely different place than what we actually were in for the main character in this film. The main character starts and she's in her room dancing, and you think something is taking place at a certain point, but it's not. And for me personally, I like how that tricked me in a good way. Another thing that leads me to another thing actually. There were a lot of good twists and turns in this film. I assumed that the main plot had something to do with the main character's family history because they tease something, which leads me actually to a flaw. But first off, I liked that every time I assumed something was going this way, actually turned out to have to do with something else entirely. There's a big plot twist at the end that I didn't see coming. I'm sure some people will, if you're like a well-versed horror fan, but it was something that I personally didn't see coming. And then lastly, this is the biggest thing I like about this movie. I should have probably introduced this as my first point. It's very long into the movie until you get your first jump scare, quote unquote. Obviously, everyone knows what a jump scare is, like the thing that makes you jump. Obviously, this movie, I mentioned it before in my earlier point that everything felt off edge. This is the kind of scary where it's unsettling, and it felt like Edgar Wright was doing such a good job at being a smarter kind of horror than the usual. Even like a something I get easily scared by things, so even something like the It movies, the recent ones, stuff like that scares me. The scenes with Pennywise, but it means more, I think, long term when you make a movie that isn't just trying to make you jump or make you flinch. This one was like you feel the hairs on the back of your neck, or you feel like some weird feeling in your chest, like something just doesn't, something feels wrong. No, no, almost like that scene for action movie heads, the trope of, oh, have we killed so and so? Doesn't feel like we've killed so and so. That's what this movie felt like for maybe the first, I want to say 45 minutes or nearly an hour. Like a couple scenes happen before that are surreal as heck before it starts to do some typical horror tropes. And I said typical horror tropes because it leads me to the flaws I have this movie. I, I, I tried to resist, but the more I've been thinking about this movie for a week. One, because I'm lazy, and didn't want to put this review out straight away. But two, because things started to bother me about this movie. The more I thought about it, the first thing, I do not understand a thread. There's something tied to the main character from the very start of this movie in terms of like the supernatural and surreal aspect of this film, and it's tied to the main character. But I don't completely understand why it was there, and it still doesn't make sense by the end of this movie. It makes this movie seem like it was trying to do two things at the same time. Like it was trying to have someone who had certain a certain family history, certain abilities, which would tie to the movie's plot, but then at the same time, it's trying to make it seem like the only reason why the main character is going through this certain situation is because of where she is, this certain location, um, because of her fascination with this certain point in time, this certain point in London culture and UK culture, and that didn't make sense. It feels like I think it's called Chekhov's gun, where you hint at something, you pay that thing off. I didn't feel like it truly paid off that thing because they show something. I'll just put it this way: mirror. The character at the start, the main character at the start of this movie, sees something in the mirror. The thing that they see, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. I don't feel like that came full circle. It didn't completely make sense in my mind. The the main character still seems like she's not all there, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with the events of this film. That's the most I can say. It's very possible. It's very possible that the intent of this movie is something else from what I think it is. But I got the vibe that this movie is be careful what you wish for type film. Um, like what's that movie? The Christmas movie. It's a Wonderful Life, I believe. Where the person like they see what life was like if they were never born. That A Christmas Carol. There's a bunch of films that have that similar concept. This felt like it was trying to do something like that, or even The Grinch, where's a cautionary tale about fantasies you have. But the problem is that this person's head was up in the clouds long time ago, in my opinion, and they make that clear in my mind from the start of the movie with the main character, how she behaves, the things she sees and doesn't see, her family history. It doesn't make sense, and it feels like they made that aspect of the movie maybe because they thought they were justifying it, but then maybe something happened in the plot that when Edgar Wright was writing this movie, and it contradicted itself in my opinion. I don't understand it personally. That's my big issue with the film. Other things in the movie that I just have that one big flaw, and then other issues are minor. So just the when the jump scares did start happening, I did find them scary. Um, but I actually wish they were more inventive with them. And the kind of jump scares, the kind of thing that was haunting this main character. I wish they they did something a little different, a little more inventive with it, because it just seemed like I don't know. It just seemed like they weren't putting much thought into the surreal with this specific thing when the jump scare horror started happening. It didn't feel like they were putting too much thought into what they were doing with that. The creepy aspects that goes throughout the movie, that feels more well thought out. The 60s homage that feels more well thought out. Certain other things in this movie, the headspace of the main character from the start of the movie to the end, still arguably feels the same. It just feels like a more calmer version, which is basically what she is at the start of the movie. I, I'm There's something in the main character that's just is ticking me off. I won't lie to you guys. That's basically my biggest issue. Um, Other than me whining about that, I liked this movie. It just unfortunately wasn't the best. Edgar Wright, I feel like he needs a writing partner, whether that's Simon Pegg or someone else. But this is his best serious film, in my opinion. A lot more so than Baby Driver. Yeah, I said it. So I appreciate that he's trying. Appreciate, like I said, the '60s homage. Obviously, he's a guy who likes music a lot. You can tell by Baby Driver and those influences. And I appreciate like how it makes me feel about UK culture. I wanted to learn more about it. And those are my thoughts, but essentially, tell me yours down below, please. Did you like this movie? Have you seen it? What are your thoughts on some of my critiques? If you haven't seen it, would you see it? Like I said, tell me down below. Like, share, subscribe. Don't be shy. Button's right there. Click. Other than that, guys, signing off. Salute.